So, function arguments in Python. So, let us say we have this function greet. Greet is a function. Right. To this greet function, we have two arguments. This is first argument, this is second argument. These are called as arguments. Right. Also, we can call them as parameters. Right. So, when we call this greet function, will pass two arguments or two values. The first value will be stored in this name argument, the second value will be stored in this message parameter. Right. So, when we print this name will be name is Sachin and message is good morning. So, we will get this. So, these are called as arguments in function. Now, if we have two arguments here, if in the definition, if we have two arguments name and message, and while calling, if we pass only one argument, we will get an error. Right. So, the error is missing one required positional argument. Right, that is this message. This is this is a call. Greet is a call to this function, and we are passing only one argument. The second argument is missing. That's why this error. That means while calling a function, the number of parameters or arguments should match while calling. Right. If you have while defining, if you have mentioned two arguments, so while calling you should pass two arguments. So, different forms of arguments. So, default arguments, let us say we have this greet function. To this greet function we have two arguments, name and message. Now, this message is defined as good morning by default. That means, if while calling this greet, if somebody do not pass this second argument, by default it will be considered as good morning. So, let us see how. So, here is a call to this greet. The first parameter is Sachin, which will be passed to this name, and the second argument is good morning, which will be passed to this message. Right. Now, we are not using this good morning, we are using this good night, which is this because we are passing the parameter, we are passing the value from here. So, this value will be given to this message, good night will be given to message, and Sachin will be given to name. So, we will get, when I print this, I will get this Sachin good night, hello Sachin good night. Right. But if I don't pass the second argument, I only pass the first argument. Right. Greet, we are calling the function greet, and to this greet we are passing this argument. The second argument is missing. So, by default this value of the second argument will be considered as good morning. So, we will get a message, hello Sachin good morning. We will not get an error here, because we have said that if the second parameter is not passed, use good morning as message. Now, there will be a syntax error if we misuse this default argument. That means, if you use the default argument in the beginning, there is a chance that you will get a syntax error. So, always use the default arguments at the end. Right. Default argument should be used at the end in order to avoid the syntax errors. Now, keyword arguments. Sometimes we pass such kind of arguments. This is a greet is a call to this greet function. Now, what we are passing from here is the parameter argument name and argument value, argument key and value. Key value pair we are passing. Key is name and value is Sachin. Key is message and value is good morning. So, we are passing the arguments in the key value pair. Right. So, when I am passing this pair as the first argument, I am passing this pair as the second argument here. And if key arguments, this key k double star k arguments means key arguments. So, the arguments which this function is expecting is a pair of key and value, key value. So, this key args name will return the value of this key. Right. Key args name will return the value of this key, which is Sachin. This key args message will return the value of this key message, that is good morning. So, this will return Sachin, because the value of this name argument is Sachin, value of this message argument is good morning. So that will be printed. So this key args parameters will be accepting any number of parameters with this combination, key value combination. We are passing two arguments here, one is this combination and second is this combination. I may pass n number of arguments here with key and values. So arbitrary argument, that means sometimes we don't know in advance the number of arguments that we will be passing into a function. So Python allows us to handle this kind of situation through function calls with arbitrary number of arguments. For example, here this is a greet function and we don't know how many arguments will be passing while calling this greet function. That's why we will simply say star names, right? Star names, this will allow us any number of parameters to this function. So let us say we are calling this greet with these four values we are passing to this greet, and when we print that names, will get this tuple, this will get this tuple, right? And if we iterate through this names, which is a tuple containing the values passed to this names, will be getting this hello 0, format name will give this Sachin, then format name will take values from this tuple Sachin, Rahul, VVS and Saurabh. So Python allows us to pass any number of or arbitrary parameters if we don't know the parameters in advance. Use star and the variable name here and just iterate through that variable